It all starts on a stormy night. Windshield wipers slicing through the rain. A young woman named Mitch is behind the wheel of her pickup truck all alone, on a quiet road, with only the voice of a college radio DJ to keep her company. While reaching for something in the back seat, Mitch nearly misses the blaring horn of an oncoming car, a scare that snaps her back to reality just in time. She laughs it off, turns up the radio, and starts jamming to her favorite song. But just as she's getting comfortable, she notices the gas gauge is dangerously low. Mitch pulls into the nearest gas station, standing awfully isolated in the middle of nowhere. And that's where things take a turn. Without any warning or sound, a strange attendant suddenly appears at her window, as if out of nowhere. Startled, Mitch hesitates, but hands over her credit card. While he fills the tank, something in her back seat catches his eye. His face changes as if he's seen something he shouldn't. Without a word, he rushes inside. When he comes back, he tells her the credit card company is on the phone. Mitch, unsure but curious, follows him into the office. She picks up the phone, only to find an empty line. No one's there. And worse, the door is locked. She turns to confront him. He's trying to say something, stammering like he's in a panic. But Mitch doesn't wait. She grabs the door handle, but the man struggles to speak as his stammer troubles him. Without waiting, Mitch blasts him with pepper spray, hurls the phone at the glass door, and escapes. Mitch ran back to her car, trembling with fear. She hit the gas and drove straight into the parking attendant. He shouted that someone was in her back seat, but Mitch only panicked. She tried to calm down while driving off. But when she glanced at the mirror, she saw a dark figure behind her. Her breath caught in a silent gasp of fear. The person raised the axe and smashed her, killing her instantly. Later that night, inside a cozy coffee shop near the college, a student named Parker told his friends a scary story. It was about the Stanley Hall massacre. Years ago, a strange psychology professor had gone mad. He tricked students into opening their doors, then cut their throats. In the end, he stabbed himself in the heart. Since then, students held a big frat party every year to remember it. Brenda and Nat didn't believe the story. But Parker said it might be true. He claimed the school covered it up so people wouldn't stop coming there. A student reporter named Paul joined them. He laughed at Parker's story and called it fake. Nat agreed with Paul because there was no proof. Brenda, however, couldn't stop staring at Paul. She clearly liked him. After a while, Nat and Brenda walked together to the old, empty Stanley Hall building. Brenda dared Nat to say, "Bloody Mary," 5 times. They giggled as they did it. But then they heard a guy screaming far away. They just stood there, too scared to move. Then they ran off, only to find a weird student named Damon, who jumped out and scared them for fun. He made fun of them for being near the shut-down building. Later, Brenda and Nat went separate ways. Nat returned to her dorm and found her roommate hooking up with a goth guy. Not wanting to hear them, she put on her headphones and fell asleep. The next day in class, the professor talked about urban legends. To show how they worked, he asked Brenda to help him with a small experiment. She stepped up to the front, and he handed her some pop rock candy and a can of soda. Brenda refused to drink it. She believed the story that mixing the two could make your stomach explode. The professor said that was just a rumor and showed a photo of the kid people thought had died. He was alive and working in advertising. Still, Brenda didn't want to try it. So Damon stepped in. He ate the candy, drank the soda, and acted normal. But then he started shaking and fell down the stairs. Everyone freaked out. For a second, it seemed real. Then Damon grinned and showed that it was all a prank. Later that day, Brenda and Nat saw the dean and the campus security guard taking copies of the school newspaper. The paper had printed a story about a student who was decapitated the night before. Paul argued with the dean and said a serial killer could be on campus. But the guard reminded them that Pendleton University had been named the safest college in the country. That night, the group met at the coffee house and watched the news. The gas station attendant was now the main suspect in Mitch's murder. He hadn't been caught yet. They all talked about it, but no one said they knew who Mitch was. After class, Nat went back to her dorm. She opened her old high school yearbook and saw a photo of her and Mitch as cheerleading captains. Her face turned sad as she closed the book. Then Damon came in. He asked if she was going to the frat party. He noticed her quiet mood and tried to comfort her. Damon took Nat to a quiet spot deep in the woods, hoping to distract her. Nat opened up a little and shared that she had been close friends with Mitch. But when Damon pushed for more, she went quiet. She saw through him. He didn't care about Mitch. He only wanted something physical. Nat had enough and told him to take her back. Damon agreed but got out of the car to pee first. While he was in the dark, someone crept up behind him with a rope. Minutes passed, but Damon didn't come back. Worried, Nat stepped out to look for him. But instead of Damon, she saw a figure in a long hooded coat. She froze and locked herself inside the car, hoping it would keep her safe. She tried to start the engine. It coughed and shook. Then something landed hard on the roof. The hooded figure jumped onto the windshield, so she hit the gas without thinking. The car sped forward, but Damon had been tied to the back by the rope. He got dragged and strangled as the car pulled the noose tight. The car suddenly stopped. The hooded figure flew off the roof but got up again. It smashed through the glass. Nat hit reverse, then crashed straight into a tree. Damon's lifeless body fell onto the car. That was all it took for Nat to run for her life. She reached the campus security office and begged the guard to come with her. They went back to the scene, but everything was gone. The car, Damon's body. No sign of a struggle. Nothing. The next day, Damon's friends didn't believe he was missing. They laughed it off as one of his usual jokes. This made Nat realize something terrifying. Someone was turning urban legends into real murders. Later, Nat went to the library to learn more about those creepy stories people pass around like they're true. She found a book about urban legends and checked it out with the help of the campus DJ. Back at the dorm, Nat's roommate was getting ready to meet a goth guy she met online. She left the room to freshen up. But when she returned, the killer was waiting. He attacked her quickly. Nat got back to the dorm soon after. She heard strange sounds but thought her roommate was just engaging in clapping activities. The killer pulled out the power cords to keep the room dark. Nat, tired and unaware, lay down in bed with her back turned. Behind her, the killer slowly strangled her roommate to death. The next morning, Nat woke up to something terrible. Blood stained the floor near her roommate's bed. When she pulled the blanket back, she found her roommate's wrists had been cut. A message was written on the wall. It was from the killer, saying Nat should be glad she didn't turn on the lights the night before. Word about the death spread fast across campus. Everyone thought it was suicide, especially since her roommate had been diagnosed as manic depressive. Even the security guard and the dean believed it. There were no signs of forced entry, so they said it had to be suicide. Nat insisted someone killed her roommate, but no one believed her. Later, Paul approached Nat with a copy of her high school yearbook. He asked for an interview and promised it would stay off the record. Nat agreed. She told him she believed someone was using urban legends to kill people, one by one. But she still didn't know why. Then she remembered something. It was the 25th anniversary of the Stanley Hall massacre. Paul took her to a secret spot where he kept his old notes and articles. They searched for the 1973 yearbook, but it was missing. So they went to ask the janitor who had worked at the university back then. But he told them to ask the professor instead, and walked off. With no other choice, they went to the professor's office. When they saw he wasn't inside, Paul searched his desk while Nat looked around. That's when she noticed something strange behind a bookshelf. She pushed it and found a hidden room. Inside were a heavy hooded coat and an axe, the same kind used to kill Damon. Nat called Paul over. They stared at the evidence and both realized the truth. The professor might be the killer. But before they could leave, they heard someone coming. They locked themselves in the hidden room and stayed quiet. A few minutes passed. When it felt safe, they stepped out, only to be caught by the professor himself. The dean brought Nat and Paul into his office after they accused the professor of murder. But the professor explained that the axe was only a fake prop for his folklore class. When the old Stanley Hall massacre was brought up, the dean asked him to leave. Once the professor was gone, the dean revealed something that took them by surprise. Nat had once been on probation for reckless endangerment, and then he fired Paul from the school newspaper. He warned both of them to stop digging into something that, according to him, never happened. Outside the office, Paul got upset when Nat kept dodging his questions about her past and her connection to Mitch. As tension grew between them, Nat remained silent, unwilling to talk, while Paul refused to let the matter drop. Later that day, Nat watched Brenda swimming laps. When she saw someone in a hooded coat walking near the pool, she panicked and tried to warn Brenda. But it turned out to be just another student. Shaken, Nat finally opened up to Brenda. She admitted knowing Mitch and explained why she hadn't considered her as a friend. A flashback showed Nat and Mitch in a car at night. They had heard about a deadly gang ritual, one where gang members drove without headlights and attacked the first driver who flashed their lights. Mitch decided to test the legend herself. She turned off her headlights and chased a car that tried to warn her by flashing theirs. Nat was scared but kept silent. She never stopped her. The other driver lost control and crashed. Paramedics came, but the driver was already dead. The court gave them probation, but the guilt stayed. Nat never spoke to Mitch again after that night. Later, Paul found an old newspaper from 25 years ago. On the front page was a photo of the professor. He was listed as the only survivor of the Stanley Hall massacre. That discovery changed everything. At the same time, the dean refused to raise campus security, even after all the strange deaths. The security guard argued, but the dean ignored him. As the guard walked off, the killer struck again. He hid under the dean's car and sliced his ankles. The dean screamed and tried to crawl away, but it was too late. The killer climbed in the driver's seat, started the engine, and slowly ran him over with metal spikes. The dean died alone, crushed beneath his own car. Paul showed up at the frat house party and pulled Nat aside. He showed her the old newspaper, pointing to the photo of the professor. Paul believed the professor had snapped after surviving the massacre and was now killing students. Nat wanted to call the police right away, but Paul explained that the dean had warned them. The cops had been told not to take calls from either of them seriously at night. They might think it was just another prank. Nat, scared and overwhelmed, started crying. Paul tried to comfort her with kind words, then leaned in and kissed her. Brenda saw it from across the room. Hurt and jealous, she left without saying a word. While that was happening, the security guard went to check the professor's office. She found a pool of blood on the floor and slipped in it. Something bad had clearly happened there. Back at the party, Paul decided it was time to speak up. He asked Parker to shut off the music so he could warn everyone. Parker gave in and let Paul talk, but then made fun of him. He even joked that maybe Paul was the real killer, doing all this for attention as a reporter. Embarrassed, Paul told Nat to stay put while he went to call for help. Meanwhile, the campus DJ left the party and went back to the radio station. Around the same time, Parker got a creepy anonymous call. He tracked the call to inside his own house. Laughing it off, he joked about the babysitter urban legend, the one where the calls are coming from the same house. But the caller said this was a different story. It was the one about the woman who dries her wet dog in the microwave. Parker panicked and rushed to the kitchen. What he found made his stomach turn. His dog was inside the microwave, and it was nothing but blood and cooked meat. He ran to the bathroom to throw up, but the killer was waiting. He dunked his head in the toilet, nearly drowning him. Parker woke up a little later, tied up. The killer forced pop rocks and soda down his throat until he started choking and bleeding. Moments later, Parker stopped moving. While Nat tried to reach Paul, the killer crept into the radio station and murdered the DJ's assistant. Then came the chase. The DJ ran, screaming, as the killer swung an axe through the building. Her cries echoed over the airwaves, but everyone thought it was part of the show. Only Nat knew it was real. She rushed to the station, but it was too late. The killer trapped the DJ, and Nat could only watch in horror as the axe came down again and again. The campus guard heard the screams and took off to find the killer, even as a thunderstorm slammed the area. Nat later ran into Paul outside her dorm and began to question where he had been during the murder. But before she could ask more, they found Brenda, who told them about the DJ's death. Since all campus phones were down, Paul offered to drive them to town. On the way, they stopped at a gas station so Paul could call the police. While he was gone, Nat and Brenda smelled something strange in the back of the car. They opened the trunk and found the professor's dead body, bloody and broken. Panicking, both girls ran into the woods and got separated. Nat made it back to the road, where the janitor picked her up. But the killer showed up again, this time in a car, and chased them down. Their vehicle lost control and crashed into a cornfield. The janitor died on impact. Nat, shaken but alive, ran back to campus. She tried to call for help but then heard screams coming from Stanley Hall. A light glowed on the third floor. She broke in and found a nightmare. Bodies of Parker, the dean, and Damon scattered in the dark. Then she saw Brenda lying still in a bed. Thinking her friend was dead, Nat broke down crying. But Brenda sat up and knocked Nat out. Nat woke up tied to the bed. Brenda stood over her with a twisted smile, no longer hiding behind the hood. She explained everything. The man Nat and Mitch had killed in the prank years ago was her boyfriend. Since then, Brenda had pretended to be Nat's friend just to get revenge. She also admitted to planting the professor's body in Paul's trunk to frame him. Brenda pulled out a knife, planning to steal Nat's kidneys, just like the old urban legend. Before she could finish, the campus guard burst in. But Brenda stabbed her and grabbed her gun. She aimed it at Nat. Suddenly, Paul walked in, clapping. He pretended to admire Brenda's plan and asked to join her, hoping to save Nat. But Brenda didn't believe him and held them both at gunpoint. Just in time, the guard, barely alive, shot Brenda. Nat grabbed the gun and hit her, knocking Brenda out the window.